Hi, everyone. It's another skill of the week. And as I mentioned last week, we are doing a unit on um, specific study strategies and really study skills related to reading and research. Last week we did essay, um, instruction breakdown, and how to understand long written instructions or project instructions. This week we'll focus on kind of the next step in a process if you had a project or essay, which is the research aspect. Specifically, we'll be talking about skimming and scanning. And these are two methods of reading that can help you move through text more quickly. So, my question for you now is, do you skim or scan reading text currently? So, if you do this, when? When might you do this? If not, why not? When instructed to find articles for research, how do you find research articles? How do you find useful articles to you? What is your method for doing that? Do you do a Google search and pull up an article? How do you do this? And once you find the article, how do you know it's actually useful for you? So it's important because to consider these questions because sometimes we need to decide whether or not reading an entire article is worth our time or if we should move on to something else. So today we'll talk about skimming and scanning, which can help you move through text more quickly, especially when research and trying to figure out what is actually useful and what is not. So this can lend itself to time management in a lot of ways, and it's a good reading strategy to use. You don't always need to read everything in depth, word for word. So, like anything, when we sit down to read, we need to ask ourselves, what is the purpose? What am I trying to do? So, for skimming, questions to ask yourself is, what am I looking for? What is the topic I am researching? So that you set out with a purpose for reading. So, skimming quickly helps you understand the main idea of an article. You can use this for previewing of an article, a quick way to look over things to try to get an kind of foundation of what it might be about, or it's a good way to review something and try and activate that prior knowledge. Can help you know more quickly if an article or material is useful. Because if you're sitting around trying to find 5 research articles and you're trying to read 5 pages for each one and narrow it down, you're spending a lot of time. So this is an efficient way to do this. So how to skim? You might be skimming already and not aware of it. But basically, the way that you should properly skim is always read the title. That will give us a good clue about what the article is about, of course. And then read the first paragraph or two completely. This will give us an idea of where the article is going and the general direction. So, reading the first paragraph or two completely word for word is a good idea. Then, once you have a good idea of how this article is going, you can just start to read the first sentence of each paragraph. And then you can read the last paragraph in full. And then be, of course, sure to look at images, graphs, or charts that are included, as those are good visual snapshots that can give us a good amount of information in a quick glance. So again, reading the title, first paragraph or two completely, the first sentence of each paragraph, and then the last paragraph completely. And you should have a good idea of the material. So thinking about this as the topic sentence, almost like the first paragraph, and then supporting details as each paragraph, and then our conclusion in the last paragraph. So let's just check in quickly. When can skimming be useful? And while skimming does not involve reading everything, there are some things you should read word for word. What should you read completely when skimming? The second kind of quick way of reading over text is scanning. So this serves a different purpose. While skimming is for main idea, scanning helps, or just getting like the gist of an article. Scanning helps us really narrow down specific information that we're trying to find. So again, we need to decide, what is it that I'm looking for? If I have keywords, if I have dates, I can kind of be skimming for or scanning for numeric information. If I have names, I can look for certain names, places, certain places. So I need to ask myself, what are the topics that I'm looking for? So again, it's a similar technique, but it involves looking for very specific topics. It's not used for just kind of getting the main idea of an article in a quick way, or in detail reading. Again, this is when I'm trying to look if an article has very specific things that I'm looking for. So you should do one scan per topic. So if I have one keyword that I'm looking for, I should quickly scan through for that word. If I have a secondary keyword, I'm going to do a second scan. So if you have multiple keywords, multiple people, multiple dates, etc., you should do multiple scans. So you're going to scan the article a few times depending on how many things you're looking for. So for example, if I'm doing a project on the Industrial Revolution and I'm looking at keywords related to trains, railroad, factories, I'm going to do one scan for train, one scan for railroad, one scan for factories. So how do I do this? So I'm going to move my eyes quickly across the page to find information. You're moving your eyes kind of horizontally as much as, or up and down vertically as much as you are side to side. So again, you're not reading every word. You're trying to pick up where these words show up on the page. If you need to use a highlighter, if you have a hard copy of text, that's really helpful. Or you can highlight the words in a Google Doc or some other annotation software that you have. When you find that keyword, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to read the material surrounding it to try and make better sense. So I'm going to read the sentence before, the sentence after, and then I need to determine if this text is useful generally and should I read it further. Maybe I'm not really picking up a whole lot of information. I'm doing scans. I'm not really finding much. Let's move on. So determine if the text is useful and whether you want to read further. Some helpful hints are the shortcuts on your computer can be really helpful for scanning. So if you have the Chromebook, Control F brings up a little find searcher on your computer and you can type in keywords and it will highlight them for you throughout an article. On a Mac, you can use Command F and it serves the same function. So if keywords and phrases that you're interested in show up multiple times, well, logic says that the article is probably most relevant and useful. So I should stick with it. So let's check in about scanning. When should you use scanning? What should you do when you find the information you need? Okay, so we're going to do a skill in action related to skimming and scanning. Let me go over that with you. So I have an article linked here and here. It is the same article. It is a Washington Post article about how we read online versus how we read just typical text, a hard text, I should say like paper copy. So we're going to skim the article to identify the main idea. And I'd like you to report, what is the main idea? And then quickly reflect on your skimming practice. What was easy about that? What was hard? And will you change anything you do next time? Like maybe you forgot to read the title. Or maybe you ended up reading the whole thing. Okay. Or if something went really well, will you not change anything? Similarly, scanning. So I've got specific information. Remember, scanning is about specific information. So I've got 3 specific questions here for you, and then reflection questions around scanning. So the article is not that long, But even so, even with long articles, you should be able to cut down your time. So remember, this is supposed to be efficient in terms of time. So you shouldn't be spending a whole lot of time reading over the article. Unless you read something, then you want to go back to it later and read it because you're interested. That's fine, of course. But please remember that I'm asking you to skim and scan. These are fast. Okay? I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say.